folks, we are back. It's the Infowarrior with Jason Bermas. Still just a stacker of news to cover. I'm going to try to cover that in this segment while I take your calls. We're on the line right now with Matt in Arkansas. Matt, go right ahead.
Hey, Jason. As I was just saying, the PrisonPlanet.tv membership is essential if you really want to know without having to instantly go and look it up as you're hearing it, see the article, see the headlines and exactly what it's saying. But additionally, I had a question, and basically it's basically just, don't you feel like maybe we're being bullied into a corner as a nation if we don't sign this Copenhagen Treaty, or even if we do, and then later on, a few years later, as we get a new president, reject it and revoke it, that we'll be set up for war against all the other countries that are involved in it.
I don't think that this is going to light off a hard war. In other words, a firefight war where other nations come against the United States because of their climate change policy. I could see that happening if, say, they were exposed to 9/11 being a false flag terror event and the United States refuses to relegate its power to a world body. That's where I could see a hot war. What I really think this is about is, again, setting the precedent for global governance and trying to get some kind of framework where we would have a global government, which is, again, in this document. And then if, say we don't sign on somehow, or Obama signs it and then the Senate goes against it, then they'll just demonize the United States for another year and say, oh, climate change has gotten so much worse. In fact, one of the headlines out of Reuters today was Greenland is losing all of its ice. And remember, the polar bears can't swim. We're all going to die. That's how they always put it. And then they'll say, well, it's at catastrophic levels. If the United States doesn't do something soon, we're going to have to force them in some other way. And I think, again, it's to acclimate the public. I would really, I got to tell you, Matt, I don't see a hot war over the climate change issue. It's more of a psychological warfare operation on the world populace, in my opinion. Can I answer your question? All right, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. We're going to go to Anita, George, Xander, and more in a moment, but I got to read this. Secretary Gates signs order barring release of torture photos. Now, remember, we got some of the photos out of Guantanamo Bay. However, what people don't understand is the foreign press printed some of the photos that you didn't see of women being raped, of a man's face eaten by a dog halfway off. You saw some of the photographs. You didn't see all the photographs. In fact, I have some of them. I have debated whether or not I will show them on this show because they are so graphic. Now, again, that was in 2004. And in 2004, it also came out that the Senate had seen video of children being raped at Guantanamo Bay. But that's okay. Robert Gates, Mr. CIA, Iran-Contra drug runner, and now Secretary of Defense under both Bush and Obama. You see how it's just an extension of one administration into the other for the New World Order. That's the reality of the situation. Has just signed yet another document that says, nope, national security, executive order, pursuant to new powers delegated to him by Congress. Oh, as if Congress should give Robert Gates any new powers. Makes me a little sick. Has executed an order blocking the release of photos depicting the torture of detainees. Oh, but we don't torture anybody. But now he's blocking all those photographs come out. See, if you get caught putting these out, being a whistleblower, being somebody who is for humanity and against the torture of innocent civilians, now you're going to be court-martialed. Now you're going to be put into a military prison. Now you're going to be they're going to come after you for doing the right thing. In a new supplemental brief filed with the High Court, the administration's attorney argue that the new law Congress passed to allow Gates this authority effectively exempts the photos from the Freedom of Information Act, therefore invalidating an earlier lawsuit. You can't even sue. You can't even sue to get these things out there. The American Civil Liberties Union, which sought the photos release, had urged Secretary Gates to release the photos. Of course they weren't going to release these photos because it looks bad for the United States. It shows the horrors that are going on there to goat farmers, to sheep herders, to innocent women and children. But we're not that hard here in America. We can't take it anymore. We've been softened. We're like little ninnying, video game playing, iPhone addicted, sports addict losers that can't grip the fact that we torture and kill brown people overseas for power. And that's the reality. All right, let's take some more calls. Anita in Texas. Anita, you're on the line.
Hey, Jason, how you doing?
I'm a little fired up, but that's all right.
Hey, I understand. I can't believe all this crap that's going on either. And there's a couple of things I wanted to say. I hardly ever turn on the TV anymore, but I turned on AMC, and there's a weird show called The Prisoner, and it looks a whole lot like what's going on now. It's a guy with amnesia, and they're in a place called the Settlement or something like that.
Yeah, that's old. That's from the 70s, actually, ma'am.
Yeah, but it's a remake of it.
Oh, it's a remake. Well, to tell you what the original one was, and I didn't watch the whole series, but The Simpsons spoofed it a while back, and what they happen is everybody's delegated a number, and it looks like this new world order system where the government is taking over the world, and for some reason, all these people were intricate to get onto this island so that they wouldn't be a dissident back in wherever they were from, whether the United States or Europe or whatever, that would be fighting them. So you're telling me that AMC is now remaking this series?
Yeah, it says 2009. It's the guy, the main guy that has the amnesia. It's the guy who played Jesus on The Passion of the Christ. It's on right
it's
now.
Jim Caviezel.
It's all through the night.
Jim Caviezel.
Yes.
Well, I will listen. I'll have to check it out. I've only seen remnants of the earlier show, and like I said, that Simpsons spoof of it, but I'm well aware of it. And it is odd how all these programs are talking about the end of the world, and there's this Discovery Channel piece where there was some kind of a cataclysmic scenario, and now there are just bands of humans going throughout the neighborhood and having to fend for themselves, and there was a massive bombing or a plague, and they're getting you ready with things like Earth 2100, where they tell you, all of a sudden there's going to be all these dragonflies, and the Earth is no longer sustainable, and we're going to have to change the way we move around, and we can't have big cars anymore. It's all to make us feel guilty in order to succumb to the psychological warfare that will lead to world government and a carbon tax. George in Indiana, you're on the line, sir.
Yeah. Do you remember, Bermas, the tie-in between Lincoln and Kennedy and how that was all weird?
I don't remember the tie-in between Lincoln and Kennedy.
Where Lincoln had a secretary named Kennedy, and Kennedy had one named Lincoln and all of that.
Not aware of it. What else you got for me?
Well, there's a whole lot of connection that they seem to be trying to do with Obama. His acceptance speech, they built a backdrop of the Pergamum altar for him, the altar of Zeus. Mm-hmm. And if you read about it in the Bible and Revelations, it's the seat of Satan. And what is interesting about Pergamum is medicine and science was worshipped there, and the symbol of worship was the serpent.
Well, I do know that when he swore on the Bible, he didn't take the correct oath, and I do know that these people, again, are very much into the occult, and yes, I've even seen the Obama YouTube video where they play, Yes We Can backwards like a dozen times, and instead of Yes We Can, it's Thank You, Satan. Thank you, Satan. Thank you, Satan. Now, I don't know if there's anything to that. I stick to what I can prove. But at the same time, yes, the elite are into the occult. Yes, the elite are into numerology. Look at Nancy Reagan. She used to get the astrology done for Ronnie every single day, so she knew what to expect. It is extremely bizarre, and I don't actually understand it or purport to understand it. I thank you for the call, George. Let's go to Xander in Illinois. Xander, you're on the line.
Hey, my name is Xander Blessman.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been reporting on the Continental Congress. It's in St. Charles. I live down the road.
All right, so maybe you can tell us exactly what the goals are and what it is briefly in a couple minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, the statement on the website, it's given by the We the People Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Are the ones that are holding it, and its purpose is to try to find or figure out a way to legally hold the Congress and the politicians in Washington, D.C. Legally and peacefully get them to operate within the bounds of the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
That's paraphrasing it, but that's stated right on their front page of their website. And the delegates are just normal people. They're just your average people who are taking time out of their lives, taking time off of work to meet in St. Charles, Illinois, from 48 different states, 104 delegates, and to try to, they're discussing ways in which to present the grievances to the Congress, and maybe even try to think up a court case. The first day, they were really discussing the court cases that have already been booted, or the Supreme Court will not hear due to, quote-unquote, lack of standing. and the discussion was, why don't the people have standing?
Mm-hmm.
This is our Constitution. This is our government. We need to have standing. And they've been progressing. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to cover it this weekend. And they've worked Saturday. They've worked today. I was there Friday night at 6 o'clock, and they were still working. They have split themselves into committees so that they can try to take on 3 different issues, each committee taking on 3 different issues.
So, Sandra, let me sum this up for people that have been listening. What you're telling me is that ordinary citizens who love the Constitution and Bill of Rights and are fed up with the federal government and the corporate takeover have gotten together in a forum or some type of a think tank where they are trying to figure out what kind of a court case may have standing in which they can challenge these leaders on their tyranny.